to my data survey for Computer Science 201, Programming with Statistics. I'm Eva Franco, and this is Spotify Wrapped in Stats. And in this presentation, I plan to walk you through an exploration of what makes songs popular on Spotify and whether or not we can predict trends based off of user behavior and preferences. My data-driven question was, can we identify which factors influence someone to stream a song multiple times, and can this help predict future hits? To this, I gathered data from Spotify and GitHub and created a Google Form survey to collect personal user data around their own streaming habits, what music genres they preferred, and attitudes towards popular songs. I also used Google Trends to explore broader research labels and interests around these topics. I also want to make sure that I'm scrolling through my website so I can actively show you guys where I'm going. Hi guys, welcome to the website. This has been a labor of love this summer, and let's just go through it. This My Topic section here just kind of talks about why this topic came to mind and how I came to pick it. The video is just a little bit about the pun in the Spotify Wrapped. As you all know, Spotify Wrapped is just the summary of the music you listen to throughout the year, what your top songs were, what song you listened to the most, what genres you loved. So I thought it was a little bit interesting to kind of delve into that a little bit more on a broader global scale. And then I have a couple of questions, a little bit beyond my primary research question. These are some other things that I thought would be fun or cool to look into as I went, or they kind of break down the big question a little bit more. This here is about my data set. It was found on GitHub, and it has been absolutely so helpful. There's a link there at the bottom, and then that button there also takes you off to the data set. And then when you click references, this is just some things that I brought up or I had to look for. So making sense of metrics in the music industries. So the article here is from UC Edinburgh from the International Journal of Communication. It is making sense of metrics in the music industries. It's just about how they take the data that Spotify gives them about like who's listening to what, how long they listen for, and how they make use of it. It's actually a really cool article. And then these are just some cool photos. They're from Spotify's For the Record newsroom, and it talks about Spotify Wrapped and how they came to like get it to the state it is currently. This video here is the same video that's on the front. And then this newsroom here is Wikipedia's Spotify streaming records. And then this is another article piece about Spotify's 2024 Wrapped in the top lists globally. So that's fun. And now we're going to go to data collection. So this is where I put the Google form after I had sent it out to a bunch of people. And it's just basically asking, hey, do you mind taking a minute and just answering the survey? There's a bunch of questions from how often do you use it, to what your favorite genres are, and especially about music in other languages, especially with K-pop currently being such a huge thing. If listening to the music matters or understanding the music matters the most. And whether or not they were surprised which artists are the largest. Scrolling down, you see a live feed of every single survey response that I've gotten thus far. And then at the bottom, we have two different charts from our survey up above. Unfortunately, they're not live, but they still hold true. Most people actually do enjoy listening to music regardless of whether or not they understand it. Music is a balm that brings people's souls together. So which factor most influences whether or not someone streams a song multiple times? Tied at first place, we have the beat and the rhythm and the mood of the song, which I can tell you, even for myself, is a very integral part. If I don't like the beat, if I can't get in with the music, if the mood just isn't right, I'm not playing it. So those are two things that you really have to look out for if you are looking to get into the music industry. And then I kind of wanted to look at Spotify Wrapped or Spotify as the labels, just because Spotify is one of the larger streaming platforms out there for music. And a really fun little bit is this dashing through the streaming platform section that I have. Everyone knows the time of the year when Mariah Carey starts to defrost and you have your favorite tunes drifting around the house as everyone's coming together. So that little early September, that little early December section is where it has just this massive spike every year. And if you really want to look at this pattern emerging down here, same time, year after year, December-ish area, Spotify Wrapped just shoots up as a search term on Google Trends. And Spotify started as an situation, has blossomed into this huge cultural undertaking where everyone talks about who their top artist was and shares the videos from those artists. And they're really touching moments. And now we're moving on to our next section, cleaning the data, or clean data. So cleaning the Google Forms survey to make sure that everything was as easy as it could be in order to read it and to actually go through it. So a smart survey. Due to the formatting I put into the survey, several common errors could actually be prevented with like range and mandatory bits. I kept everything required and I only allowed certain ranges. There were very few sections where you could just type in a bunch of random numbers and keep it going. And then moving on to the format, I kind of just went in by hand. As you can see the section highlighted, it was mostly an issue with the titles of the songs and the artists being swapped or the way people put them in. And so down at the bottom you have the newly formatted data, and then we have a few pivot tables. So majority of listeners are open to music in other languages, even if they don't understand the language, and this even further supports that emotion, rhythm, and melody often matter more than the language. I know I've said this multiple times, but music is a balm to the soul. So, and then we have our open source data, and it just takes the track songs, the number of their streams on Spotify, and the count of artists. Most Spotify artists tend to be by themselves. You have a few where there's just a bunch of artists on it, but solo artists tend to do better. Except in certain situations where a specific artist has a large following or a large fandom, and again, like you will see in K-pop, if you see like BTS doing something, then all of their fans will flock to that song. And some very devoted fans will play them multiple times. And so, moving on to visuals. This is hitting top of the charts. It's a bit difficult to see, so I do apologize. But it just has a bunch of different statistics and cool little ways to see the facts. And then Bop to the Top, if you know where that's come from, so great. If you don't, it's High School Musical. It just basically talks about how the US dominates Spotify representation, with about 2,000 of the most streamed artists, outpacing all other countries. And then over here we have another chart made specifically from the 2024 songs in the GitHub data. And it just kind of shows you that all of the plays and views are mostly concentrated around the top songs of the year, and then slowly sliding down. You still have your very devoted fans, but it's not as big or as popular or even as viral anymore. Then this is a scatter plot sourced from the internet about Spotify-specific performance for various artists. You have the blue dots representing total streams of a song on every platform versus the red dots being Spotify-specific. A lot of them are relatively close, or the only one that they have for Spotify. And then here we have another chart made which shows that explicit media tends to dominate, though it is very close. Not everybody loves an explicit song. Moving on, we have Python. So, for our first bit of code that we've created, we have the streaming analysis. So this here is my bit of code, and it basically just pulls out that Taylor Swift had 2.6 billion streams, and The Weeknd had 18.5. Taylor Swift had 8 billion more streams than The Weeknd, and together they had 45 billion. So, a little bit fun. And then, going back, we've got the Music Clips survey. Music Clips was the title of the survey I created. And then this was just a bit of data. And this was just a bit of coding that essentially asked you a couple of the questions. This was a sample version of it, and it would spit it back out as a CSV, which, for those who don't speak code, is a comma-separated values. So it's just a list where everything just has commas in between. So it would take the date time, put in that you're 19, you use Spotify how often, and then how much do you think that the streaming numbers reflect the song's quality. So it's just a little bit of data, a little bit of fun. Continuing, we've got Spotify predictions. So this is a little bit of fun code, which takes a loop-based menu where you select songs until you basically decide to exit, and it just tells you whether a song is a hit or not a hit. And so it goes through option 1, find which songs are hits, over 300 million streams from 2024, and the GitHub data. 2, calculate total streams and likes for all songs for 2024. Find the most popular song, and find the song with the most likes per stream. So that's just the fun little bit of data there. You are more than welcome to take your time afterwards and go through it, but I do kind of want to showcase everything. So this is the Spotify Hits program. It's another loop-based program. However, this one does use functions and not just loops. So there is that. And then continuing on, we've got our data visualizations. So again, writing a bit more code, getting my practice. This is what it outputs, but you can just kind of see them here. You got this scatter plot, this line, this bar chart, and this pie chart. This is just a different way to show the explicit versus clean, and a whole bunch of other little fun bits. And then continuing on, we've got more visuals. So this is again the bit of code I went through. And then we have a bar chart of the survey data specifically, of whether or not people enjoyed the top songs. And then down here we have a genre distribution, pop obviously taking the lead, tied with rock however. And then enjoyment of Spotify songs, the mean was 3.15, median 3, and the standard deviation was 1.3. So most people did typically find that they at least somewhat enjoyed the top songs on Spotify, which allows them to go a little bit more viral. And then down here, cleaning the data, we kind of just take a bit of code and we make it do everything we did manually earlier. So it just kind of goes through it and makes sure that everything is formatted into a way that is useful for us. And then it takes that data and it turns it into a scatter plot, a line chart, a bar chart, and another bar chart. So, fun bits. Anyways, a lot of the music, it doesn't matter if it's metal, rock, pop, as long as somebody really likes it, it's going to hit the charts, it's going to hit its way up there. It does help if the music is something that everybody can groove along to. That typically does make music stick out a little bit more. But everything else, the data goes everywhere. So I hope this encourages you to find your own data story, and I hope you enjoyed mine. So, have a great day.